reconcile the entire situation, you know, and keep Joel close to her in a weird way, but in like a way that's far more productive and healthy. Although I know most people would never be able to do that because of emotions. But yeah, all things considered. Lev does have more hair now, yes. Ellie might die on the trip back, slowly. Will they maybe have an honest talk because they're both on death's doorstep? Just pure, vulnerable human, not idealized killing machines. Well, the one thing you can kind of expect is that would they end it in a similarly ambiguous way to the first one, with like a final piece of dialogue rather than action.
I can't let you leave. I'm not doing this.
Fucking hell. It's a bit late for this, like it really is. Dick Champion! Dick Champion! Hello, Tommy is the villain of the game. He got Joel killed and made Ellie leave her family. He got Joel killed?
Yes, you will.
It's funny she needs her in a fighting state.
He's
Look,
not a part of this.
She's so withered down.
You made him a part of this.
It'd be nice to just see Ellie cry to her about it and say, why did you have to do that, and have them talk about it. Really? Are we doing this? Are we doing this? I guess we're doing this. Oh! Oh, come on! Oh. Fucking hell. Oh my god. Oh, they're doing the Saving Private Ryan thing. And I have to keep pressing it. Fuck. Oh. Fuck! You can tell they're both so tired. I'd like to see them collapse and Abby just, Ellie cry and just talk about it. Like, spew her feelings about Joel dying to the villain. In her mind, to the villain. Like, that'd be a nice moment. Like, both tired and unable to fight. Oh. Oh. This is harrowing. Can you not do it? Can you not do it? If you close your eyes, it's like watching women's tennis. That's fucking pretty great. Can I not do it? Oh, she's back up. I guess I have to do it. Ellie's gonna leave with Lev. Is that how it's gonna work? Ah! Can't do it.
Go. Just take him.
Yeah, totally, Weddy. Totally. I can understand why they ended it that way. Because that was Ellie's, like, I think there was a final flash of Joel, which was the last piece of her humanity in that final moment, and it was like she was staring into the abyss. The Friedrich Nietzsche quote about one who hunts monsters should be careful not to become a monster himself, and if you stare into the abyss will stare back. To me, that felt like she was staring into the abyss the entire time since Joel died, and in that last moment she decided to look away before she fell completely into it. So I can understand that from an emotional standpoint. That makes sense. It maybe isn't satisfying for some members of the audience, but again, if you're strongly sided with Ellie, Ellie chose to let her live at the end because it was the best thing for her psychology in that moment. And so even if you are Team Ellie or whatever, not to be divisive, I feel like that was her decision. That was her decision. And it's probably the best thing for her psychology, honestly, at that point. She got what she wanted. Abby was killed. She's a shell. She's on death's door, you know. And I think Ellie's probably realized and reflected on the fact that it doesn't make a difference, that it won't bring Joel back. And I suppose showing flashes of him dying, driving out in the final moment, showing him alive, pulls her back from the brink. Mic 10. Boom. Oh my god, that might be the fucking single most well-timed comment since I've started streaming in this chat. Fucking hell. Dude, that's perfect. Sorry, I've missed a bunch of stuff here. There might be too much for me to catch up on. I think this is this game and the first one illustrates that no one and everyone is the villain all at once, just competing desires in a messy, fucked up world, just like life. I'm glad the fuckwits that wanted the story was shit, and this didn't get the game they think they want. Yeah, one of the kind of talking points that I've been leaning on actually is that for better or worse, you know, if we want to discuss it as art, as you know, as medium versus is it a good packaged product, I think we can abstract those two things away, right? And so the packaged product thing is it going to be satisfying for the majority of consumers? Potentially no. So in that sense, we can kind of say, well, that element of it, you know, if we want to slice it off, maybe there's objective arguments for why it's not good through that lens, just like different lenses, different characters. But as art, as story, as narrative, for better or worse, depending on your point of view and how you feel about it, it is inspiring much more conversation about the medium, about player and character relationship, about storytelling in games. It is inspiring a lot of more conversation than I can remember from any other narrative-driven anything. There have been spikes of things over the years, you know, about representing minorities and representing women and those kinds of things. But this is bringing up this discussion around should a story, you know, conform to certain expectations, certain structural expectations, you know, certain tropes. Does it have to, or can it not? Does it have to play by the rules, so to speak? And I think that's valuable in and of itself. And the fact that a company with so much resources and so much clout is doing that is great, because they could so easily not, you know, even if it's not the product that some people want, you know. Daramo, fuck yeah. Oh no, that's okay, Mike 10. That's totally understandable, man. Totally. But you fucking dropped in with the biggest atomic bomb of a comment ever. Oh, totally, Grumps. Absolutely. Are we talking about Ellie having killed people? If Ellie wouldn't have gone to look for Abby, Abby would have died on her own. She would have, yes, Fish. For the 100 people she killed along the way. So Grumps, you're talking about Ellie, yeah? Well, and that was kind of a thing that I thought was interesting throughout this, is that we side automatically with Ellie, and I think this is the experiment going on. We side with Ellie because of the first one having set up this relationship with us. And then we use that to emotionally justify everyone she kills along the way, which is why I think they specifically named all the enemies, they named all the dogs as well. They're trying to do something there. Otherwise they could just be generic soldiers. It's not just for detail. It's for the very specific point of driving that Ellie is killing real people, and yet we're blind to that because we side with her plight in a video game world where the mechanics and the challenges take the form of human beings. We don't stop and think about it. We're like, we have to get to our goal, and by making it visceral, by making the death animation so gruesome, we start to realize that we're not getting the same feelings from this game as we're getting from other things. We're actually quite disgusted by what we're doing, by what Ellie's doing. And Ellie has, for all we know, killed more people in her... She's killed more people in her vengeance quest. That's undoubted. Like, really, for me, in my mind, there's almost no doubt of that. We didn't see how Abby's team got to Jackson, but it wasn't really set up that they'd done things like, you know, because they're in the WLF and there's this faction warfare, which is politically justified, a psychology that's different to just a vendetta and just murdering people to get to a goal, right? A personal goal. And so, yeah, Ellie became, and this is why the Friedrich Nietzsche quote, again, for me, holds true in this, which is, you know, one who hunts monsters should be cared not to become a monster himself, and that if you stare into the abyss will stare back. And Ellie was not turning in terms of the disease, she can't, but she was turning in terms of her emotional state was compromised. And she was turning into something. So there was another type of turning going on. She was turning into the monster she thought she was chasing, all the while not seeing it. And as a player, we don't necessarily see it until it's reflected back on us. But there are some things structurally, I think, you know, like fighting Ellie as Abby, I probably would have preferred that to be a cutscene. That felt wrong and weird, and I didn't want to do it. It is, I guess they'll probably say, as an avant-garde design statement, that they're forcing the player to confront things that make them uncomfortable. But I didn't want to, as me controlling a character, I didn't want to attack Ellie, and we do project ourselves onto the characters at the same time while we're playing, right? Anyway, that's a little bit of a rant. I should probably get up to date with these comments. You said exactly that when you played it, the wankers pissing and moaning and playing themselves, making it more of a cultural touchstone, even historical. What was that in reference to, Lee? Was that in reference to something that I said? You're online fan, Mike 10. Yes. Do you feel the same way about Abby? As in, do I feel the same way about Abby having killed people? Yeah, absolutely. Except that all the people we killed as Abby, and this is very intentional, was in situations of political warfare, in a civil warfare scenario, which is effectively soldiers from warring factions killing each other, which is hugely different psychologically than being on a bloodlust mission, right? And yet everyone we killed as Ellie wasn't political. It was emotional and it was personal. And they were just so much fodder to her, even though they had names, you know, and there were people all the way through. And the fact that Abby sort of said to Ellie, hey, we let you live and you fucking wasted it. As in, they had that conversation about how Ellie and Tommy had nothing to do with it, so they spared them. But Ellie didn't do that. But she did have the humanity, she did still have humanity left, you know. The Nora thing kind of turned her a bit. He did try to spare Owen and Mel, but the situation went bad, and Abby probably would have done the same thing. And so cards just sometimes fall on the table, right? And so there's this constant fluctuation. The hardest bit to get past is the nature in which Joel was killed, and that because it starts off without any context, the audience starts off with the lowest opinion of Abby possible, and in a way that sets up a huge amount of work and overhead for the writers to try to pull Abby up out of that. Especially given brand recognition and, you know, attachment to this character being bigger than, say, just a film doing it. So they set themselves up a huge task, but that's not to say they shouldn't have done that and tried. And I think on some levels it's successful, and on some levels it's like, okay, I can understand how some people are so emotional about it because of the nature in which she was killed. It's very, very hard to like Abby, and the filter gets put on. So we start to see Abby that way, but yeah, I think the game was trying to pull Abby out of the mud, but yeah, they set themselves up a fucking huge task to do that. By the end, for you, hoping Abby would kill Ellie, and that would be the most fitting ending, and it was a cop out that she didn't die until this here. One more question: how is she going to play guitar now? Cycle of Revenge, not striking the guitar. Cycle of Revenge spreads in a similar way to how the virus spread. Yeah, totally, Von's truth. I think there's multiple things that spread in this world, and the obvious one is the disease or the virus or the infection. But the other thing that spreads is animosity, vengeance, apathy, depression. All those kinds of things also spread. The cultural change, all of that stuff. There's multiple things. There's mental viruses, really, you know, in a way. Oh, cool. Thanks, Grumps. That's just off the cuff after having kind of arrived here and at midnight, but I'm going to try and take some time to collect my thoughts and maybe try to distill it a little bit more into some points. And also critically look at maybe bits that I can see didn't work in some people's minds, because it's not perfect, right? Did I catch the question regarding Lev? No, sorry, I've been fucking talking and that whole thing, sorry. So it looks like a lot of time's passed, and this is a bit of a somber, again, what's the cost of getting what you think you want? Above Woody's last comment. Oh, Nero, sorry. Okay, cool, it scrolled off, sorry. I thought you meant something in the game. As good a time as any. Did you even pick up on Lev being trans thing? Another gripe for many stupid reasons. I saw Lev's transition as a personal move towards independent more than anything else. Oh, totally. It wasn't, I did pick up on it. Only because I kind of knew that that's what was going on beforehand. Like, I couldn't completely avoid spoilers. I didn't know which character it was, but I heard tell it was a trans character in it. But again, just like Dina and Ellie's relationship, the game never said, Lev's trans. This is a trans person. Accept trans people. You political bigot. You know, it never said anything like that. It was just like, here's a character. His name is Lev. And then when you're in a confrontation with some of Lev's ex, comrades, you know, where you've been diametrically opposed and they're going to kill you, they taunt him by calling him Lily. And then Lev afterwards asks, did you hear what they called me? Abby says yes. Lev says, would you like to ask me about it? Abby says no. I can't remember what she says, but basically no, not now or something. And the game never states anything about trans people. It's just like Ellie and Dina's relationship. It doesn't say anything about homosexuality. It doesn't say anything about lesbians in specifics. It just says it just presents two people living a life that are having a romantic relationship with each other. It doesn't say anything. You know, it doesn't have an opinion on it. Just presenting it. Same with Lev, and I think that's great because it seems like people are butthurt like the game's trying to ram it down your throat, and it's not. It's like there's literally one character, and it's easy to miss, and it's a throwaway moment. And people are getting butthurt like they're ramming it down your throat. It's like, well, why shouldn't we be butthurt then that, you know, and this starts to play into that a little bit, but like, why shouldn't we be butthurt that middle-aged white men have been rammed down our throats in games? Why is no one being like, oh, I'm sick of playing as middle-aged white man? You know? It's like, because that looks like me, so it's cool. It doesn't make me feel weird in my pee-pee, you know? So I think it was good. Anyway, I'm rambling. As soon as you entered the door there, you thought the consequence was far better than her being slain by Abby. Yeah, totally. Absolutely. Because this is a reflection piece where we're still attached to her as the primary lens for the world, and so, you know, there's more to lose than your life, you know. Depends if you buy into the whole bracelet thing right now, if it's a consequence. The only part where it completely gives away is he was about to be a wife, and the Lily part. Yeah, that's right. Such a powerful way to highlight the consequences of blind revenge. We've got 2 hours left in the game. But bullshit, mate. No way. Really? Fuck off. Not to detract from what I'm about to see. Is there a letter or something left behind? Big Booty Julie, hello. Thanks for bringing your big old booty into the chat channel. I don't know if you said anything beforehand. I've been a bit scattered actually, so it might be your first time, but welcome either way. When you said you totally agree, is that to someone in chat or is that to something that I was waffling on about? Because I spew a lot of shit, and sometimes it gets hard to be like, what's that in response to? You know? Finish the game, then do the rants. Yeah, it's mostly download because some of the good comments so far will be gone forever if I don't look at them now. Oh, you missed the part you wanted to see. In your bunk. Was it the confrontation? Oh, she's left all her stuff in the room for her. Which means, yeah, I suppose that's fair. She probably thinks she'd come back here. Oh, shit. Damn, Senior. Or the fact that her fixation on the retribution is the only reason Abby survives in the end. Taking the game about everyone just living their life. Nothing had to be thrown in your face. Oh, cool. I'm glad you agree with that, totally. They didn't throw anything. There was no opinion, no character made a point of anything. It was just people meeting each other and stuff happening, and we just had a camera inserted into that. It feels very authentic. Because people in real life, when they're being natural, they don't go out of their way to explain. They just go, hey, I'm so-and-so. And this is done it like that. It's good. I don't get why people are saying it's political. How is it political? Like, you can argue other flaws, potentially, as a piece of capitalist entertainment product, sure. But there was that stuff, I don't get it. It's just like, yeah, it make me feel weird in my pee-pee, and it's like everyone's getting all the fucking out of joint. Oh. Damn, she can't play the song. Nice full circle. If I hadn't taken 38 hours play through this, it might have hit a little harder, but you can see what they're doing. Oh. And that's a real cost too, right? Because it's like, that's a part of Joel. And so it's tainted part of her ability to remember Joel. It does say so much, yeah. What she lost there was Joel. She lost part of Joel right there. So in fighting in his honor, what she thought, she's lost part of him, which is the part of her that's most like him. You know?
Hey.
Totally Megalo, totally.
What are you drinking?
We'll hop back in time.
Coffee.
Where'd you get that?
Those people that came through last week.
Totally, Weddy, totally. Totally.
A little embarrassed as to what I had to trade to get it, but
Coffee, Darma, you're represented here.
it's not bad.
I had Seth under control.
Yeah, I know.
And you need to stop harassing Jesse about my patrols.
Okay. Dina. Is she your girlfriend?
No. No, that was just one kiss. It doesn't mean anything. I don't know why she did that.
But you do like her.
So stupid.
Look, I have no idea what that girl's intentions are, but I do know that she would be lucky to have you.
You're such an asshole.
I'm not trying to.
I was supposed to die in that hospital. My life would have fucking mattered. But you took that from me.
It does matter to him, that's the thing.
If somehow the Lord gave me a second chance at that moment, I would do it all over again.
Yeah. I don't think I can ever forgive you for that. But I would like to try.
I'd like that.
Okay. I'll see you around.
Yep.
Yep, letting go of him. He's in many ways in this whole game. He's embodied in the guitar, right? Like that's him to her, and her trying to play that at the end comes full circle from the very first scene. That's good writing. That whole thing is very good, and that the cost is that by fighting, you know, I suppose to get back something because he was taken, she lost more of him. And I feel like that's a conscious thing, because if you kind of pay attention to the fact that as it's leading up in the final moments to her getting to Abby, she keeps having flashbacks of Joel dead, and it's like the only way she's carrying him is that moment. And she's already letting that tarnish her memory of Joel, which is the better parts of her, you know? And it's the final moment before she could kill Abby where she sees Joel alive. Almost realizing that I've let my memory of Joel be completely tarnished by all of this, and I forgot the most important parts about him and me and our relationship. It's that final moment. It's like he pulls her out, he pulls her back, you know, or that part of him and her pulls her back. Love Life, hey, welcome right at the end here. They don't know. I think they've said they're not sure if they're going to make a number 3. Definitely a lot to digest. I did like how that wrapped up. Her going back there and, you know, about life moving on, you know. In fact, Weddy, it kind of reminds me of how in The Dark Tower there's that theme is quite central to that, I think. Even though you've read maybe half of it, Roland talks about how the world moved on. And this is very much about the world having moved on and people having moved on. Really good. Really good. Yeah. Totally Vons. Like, I'd rather, you know, be alive and trying. Like the opportunity to try and deal with it. Really good. I mean, as I've kind of been saying the last few streams, like, for better or worse, whether you like it or not, you can't deny how much this game has... It reaches right inside people's emotions. Whether you're having a positive reaction to it, you're feeling those emotions that the game is trying to align you with, or whether you're absolutely livid at what happened to Joel and how that was handled and you fucking hate Abby more than anything. How many games can you think of that inspire that kind of fucking passion? That kind of passion. I barely even remember any films in my life up to this point where people have walked out arguing about it and nearly at each other's throats over, like, not anything to do with the fact that it was terribly made, which sometimes is the case, like when sequels are fucking just crap and they're worse than the original and they replace actors and stuff, people get shitty about that. But what happened in this fictional narrative? And it's weird that because it's a fictional narrative, like, the people who produced it are getting targeted as if they've, I don't know, fucking built a nuclear weapon. But how many other things can you think of that have inspired such division, such diametrically opposed feelings towards something? And that means that in both sides it worked. And in some way it's generated, hey, thanks for the follow, Love Live. In some ways it's also generated in some of the audience the kind of hate that this world produces. And they did say the first one's about love, this one's about hate. And so it's kind of ironic, and maybe it's a fucking Hail Mary stroke of genius that it's created hate in a lot of the audience. Which is maybe the point on some meta, you know, avant-garde experimental layer, which, you know, again, you can argue whether or not that's a good idea as a product. But fuck, like, can't think of many other things that have stood out like this. You know? Totally, Megalo, totally. And I think there's an idea here as well that it's maybe a more fringe idea, but that hate is a valid emotion to generate. from a story. Totally valid. You know, not everybody needs to like what you make either. And is that not okay? Like, is it not okay? Is it not okay to even produce a song that 80% of people hate and 20% of people get or like or feel aligned with? But because 80% of people don't enjoy it subjectively, therefore it's objectively bad, I don't think is an argument that actually holds true. I can get how you're disappointed because people want to like it, and our expectations often subvert our experiences. But is it not valid to produce a piece of art that maybe makes people feel shit? I mean, again, not saying that that's a wise choice economically, but valid expression. There have been theatrical performances that have incited riots. There's been music that's incited riots. There have been pieces of art that have incited arguments and bloodshed throughout human history. And I'll be interested to see if a year from now or a couple of years from now this does a Blade Runner and has a complete backflip in terms of a hindsight critical analysis, coming back and looking at what it was doing, and maybe without availability bias in the way and without these other biases, emotional layers, maybe it's like Blade Runner flopped massively in 1982 at the box office and then is now heralded as this amazing masterpiece. Not saying this is gonna do that, but maybe. Honestly, you found the violence in this to be quite hard to watch. All the death animations, totally senior bunk, and I think that's totally the idea. Totally the idea that in games we are used to... Oh, Van Ricketts. I worked with a guy in games called Van Ricketts. He was a level designer. But that was in Australia. I doubt he's at Naughty Dog getting a special thanks, but... anyway, yeah, I think that's the idea, senior bunk, that it's like in games we're so used to... In a game where we're presented with killing as the tool to overcome a challenge, we're used to that being almost holistically rewarding. And yet in this, every character has a name, every enemy has a name, and so the idea is that you're killing people and that you shouldn't necessarily feel good about it. You shouldn't feel good about it. This game doesn't want you to feel good. It doesn't want you to feel good. And we're used to entertainment being this thing that we go to, which even if it's hard to watch, like Saving Private Ryan has hard moments, but it's still this like, I feel good, like it's entertainment, it's fun. This skirts a very risky line of like, it doesn't want you to feel good. You have to kill because it's necessary to progress. But you don't feel good about it, you feel dirty. And I think there's a bit of risk-taking and value, and maybe even a stroke of genius in that, because they're playing with the medium on a meta layer, on a very important area to play with, and very hard area to play with. So do we know that if in the Last of Us universe other continents have been hit in Outbreak Day? We don't actually know. We don't know. The assumption is yes, but we don't know. Bill, Ellie, and Abby were a perfect balance sheet of each other throughout the story. What Ellie lost, Abby gained, and what Abby lost, Ellie gained. At the end of the first game, Abby lost her father and family. Ellie gained a father and family. Abby lost her humanity by carrying out her revenge at the start of the second game and slowly restored that humanity by taking pity on an enemy. Meanwhile, Ellie was... They almost had inversely proportionate journeys through vengeance. And Abby's realized vengeance caused similar consequences to what decisions Joel made. Joel made a decision and there was fallout. Abby then made a decision as a reaction to that, as a chain of cause and effect, which then caused a fallout. And then Ellie became the next, like a domino falling, became the next domino to start tipping. And presumably the idea would be that every person we killed who has a name would potentially have a loved one that would be then hunting Ellie down for that too. All in parallel, branching off infinitely, as a web. But we don't see that because the game's exploring this particular lens. But presumably that's the same thing, right? Every character we kill, we're supposed to feel like they're someone's Joel, maybe. You know what I mean? Art is interpretive in nature. If you don't like painting I wouldn't say your opinion was wrong. Totally Nero. And I think, there's this really interesting discourse around art between this subjective layer, where we can say, I didn't like that, and here's why. And then the objective layer, which is although I didn't like it, I can see what it was doing. And it did this well and it did that well. But also in the objective layer, you can say subjectively someone's loving everything, and objectively you can say, oh well, if we put this on an objective lens, that didn't work so well because of ABC. And I think there's two separate conversations, and the problem is that this is getting into kind of a deeper discourse, but I think in general, humans aren't taught too well, at least in culture so far, to be able to tell the difference between my subjective feelings and the objective facts or information or structure around things, and that they get smushed together, especially in public, in crowds, because we're terrible as crowd psychology, and the internet is nothing but a giant crowd. Where panic spreads and bandwagon effects run rampant, you know. But it should be possible to divide the two and say, I don't agree with you because I didn't feel good about it, but I totally understand how you like these elements, and I thought this element was fucking great, and whatever. You know what I mean? I'm a little bit tired. It's hard to articulate. A lot of people assume their personal truths are objective truth. Totally megalo. And they're not. Most people are never taught to think differently about that. In fact, the conversation never really happens. It's just you get your values handed down by peers and by seniors in your life when you're young, and then those values are held as truths, and then you just go out into the world and bump into everything. You're never really taught that, hey, someone else's values that you don't understand that seem alien to you, yours are the same from outside your own perspective. That you can kind of simulate seeing yourself as an alien in a way, and that's really valuable, you know? You're still upset that Joel died, but mostly people just hate the game because Joel died. But I love the whole game. Sometimes someone has to die for the other person to move on with their life. Love life, totally. Totally. Very ironic for you to word it like that when your handle is love life. Totally. And it was... Joel dying was the fuse that lit the dynamite stick that was inside of Ellie. And there was nothing else that was going to set that off. Joel's death was evil, but we as the player still got to see plenty of him throughout the story. Yeah, and we yeah, totally. And I think initially when people heard that happen earlier, they were like, oh, this game sucks, I don't get to be Joel anymore. And there wasn't heaps of Joel, obviously, but there was more than I thought there was going to be. And that's cool. Hate breeds hate cycle, totally. Hate begets hate. Somebody has to say stop, and in the end, both Abby and Ellie do such. Yeah, totally, Nero. The buck does have to stop with somewhere. With someone. Someone's got to take the blow and not return the blow, which is the start of a truce, you know, of any truce, of any ceasefire, of any peace. Someone has to not hit back, and that takes the most strength. It's very easy to give in and to just do what feels good. Like, that's always the easiest thing. But to take a blow and go, I want to hit you back, but even though it's the thing I want to do the most in the world, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it. We're going to leave it. We're going to leave it here. And I don't care if you call me weak. I don't care if you put me down and go, you're walking away, you're not hitting me back. I'm choosing not to. And that's different to not feeling like I can. I'm choosing not to because I don't want to play this. And you could tell Abby had arrived at that because she's like, I'm not doing this. Like, I'm not playing this. It's done. Like, let's stop hitting each other, you know. So do you think that Ellie could not kill Abby because she was thinking about Joel and there was a part of Joel in her? Yes. So she could not kill her. Why do you think Ellie did not kill Abby? No, absolutely, love life. Sort of what I was touching on before, that up until that point, every time Ellie thought of Joel, she remembered him being dead. And in the final, most important moment where the last part of her humanity arguably was hanging by a thread, she saw Joel in a way she hadn't thought about him for a long time. Alive, with the guitar. And what she saw was herself. The last of her humanity, the last of Joel was about to leave her. And she stopped. I think she realized that if I do this, I will lose myself. And if I lose myself, I will lose Joel, because all that's left of Joel is me. And the guitar kind of summarizes that for me, that was a conscious choice. The writers were aware of this. Neil Druckmann was aware of this. Tries to play the chords and she can't, and it's like, I've lost him in a way. So rather than lose everything, which is me being dead because I can't think about him anymore. I'm going to wear the loss of the fingers. I'm going to wear the fact that I've tarnished him and I've lost part of him, and I'm going to move on, and I'm going to carry the pieces that are left and get on with it, for lack of a better phrase, you know. Really good, really good. Few things inspire this much thought. But it definitely doesn't take the form of conventional entertainment, and I think that's why people are like, I paid $80. I want to laugh and feel good about myself. I don't want to pay money to feel like shit. Sadism. I don't want this game to be, this game is very sadistic. Like taking pleasure in my pain. Yeah. But again, pain and hate and feeling hate, not just enjoying watching someone portray hate, but us feeling hate ourselves, even for the thing that we're playing, is like a valid thing. Like, how powerful that a bunch of data on a disk constructed by a couple of hundred people over many years can come out through a console into a player's mind and elicit such strong emotions. Crazy good. Crazy profound in a way. You know? I would have preferred if Abby didn't fight back at the end. I feel punching a weakened Abby with no resistance would have had more impact. Yeah, I was hoping she wouldn't either. I thought what was probably going to happen was like a scene where Ellie grabs her and pushes her and she won't fight back. And then because Ellie's like bleeding, to have her push and like burn the last of her energy and collapse. And have both of them collapse, in the water and sit there. And I thought it would have been, maybe Ellie would start crying and say, you took him from me, you took Joel from me. That was all I had. That was all I had in the world. And I never got to tell him that I loved him, and have her acknowledge her own feelings to the person she thinks she hates. I think that would have been quite poignant. And she almost did, because there was almost a point where she collapsed and she cried. And I maybe would have liked to see her just cry more and like be fully broken by not the situation anymore, but by herself. Like she broke herself in a final moment and revealed to the person she hated the most her innermost feelings. I thought that would have been kind of cool. So Vons, I feel you on that. I feel you on that.